Is it a good idea to invest in India for 30 years? Considering the opportunities. Massive population growth. Considered to be a democratic country. More capitalistic nature than China. The massive upgrade to middle-high class. Fairly good high-tech culture. And the risks. A lot of corruption. High level of poverty. Political governance risk. Geographic risk. Climate change risk. What are the chances of India being a really good investment for the next 30 years, providing remarkable returns? Indian stocks are already priced at high valuations, higher than a lot of US big tech. Unless you live in India, foreign exchange fees and taxes tend to eat a huge portion of your margin over other investments when buying on a foreign exchange. China was even more of a communist dictatorship 30 years ago and still managed to rise economically. India had already all the positive aspects you mentioned 30 years ago and is still trapped as a middle-low-income economy. There will be more likely than not some good investments to be made in India in the short and long term, but I wouldn't bet heavy on the country as a whole. Your cons are going to outweigh the pros. Everything on your opportunity list could hit, but your corruption, currency risk, and political governance is going to wipe out your investment at the end of the day. My guess is that even if India has a ton of wealth generation, most of it will be exported and countries like the US will benefit from it disproportionately. Much safer to just keep investing in developed economies instead of emerging ones. Corruption was perfected in India. No. The growth might happen, sure. But as a retail investor you will see none of it. I think you need to also consider currency risk. Infrastructure is a mess, although trending better, and I believe property rights aren't at the same level as more developed countries. If it were me and I wanted to make the bet, I would try to find an India-focused fund, run by somebody who knows what they're doing, and understand that I'm going to pay a real management fee but that it is likely worth it as compared to trying to do it myself. Thought of this as I believe in India. But the political corruption is tough. I'm from India, it has huge potential for growth. But there are risks associated like you highlighted. But most FMCG, insurance, contract manufacturing stocks are already priced in and are visible to all. This makes little sense. It's such a broad-based question with no substance. You're about 30 years too late for India. All the big investors are already in and priced in. The future of manufacturing is in Vietnam and possibly Indonesia. As for overall infrastructure and development, you should be looking into Africa, which is basically where FB, Microsoft, Starlink, Jack Dorsey's God knows what are invested in. If we're talking 30-50 year time frame, Africa's the next hotspot between Western tech investment and China's Belt and Road Initiative's investment into their overall infrastructure. Probably the spot to find multi-baggers, but obviously difficult to find them. The low median income and tendency of wealth to get exported instead of staying in the country makes me think it's a bad idea. Even if a country has high GDP growth, it may or may not be reflected in the stock market of the country. Since lots of the large companies are multinationals, it may not be the Indian companies that are listed on the exchange that will directly benefit. Apple is moving lots of manufacturing to India after Modi USA trip. Google, Boeing, Amazon announced plans to up investments in India. All this is great for the Indian economy. It might be great for Boeing, Amazon, Google as well. Will it benefit stocks listed on the Indian exchange? Probably some will. Just keep in mind that political scenarios of India keeps changing. They have change in mindset as well. We know it's a developing country, investing would be good, but politics somewhat plays a role into that. Seeing as crystal balls are hard to come by, I would say no. India has a long way to go in many areas. For example, infrastructure. It's going to take them at least 30 years or so, just to get their infrastructure up to the level of being a world power. The world's largest democracy, Yes. An economic world power right now? Not so much. Smiley face, smiley face, smiley face, smiley face. When I see this, I already thinking about nope the fuck out, a lot of corruption, political governance risk, geopolitical geographic risk. I would rather a stable country with lower profit. But that is my personal taste. The corruption is what would keep me away. Don't trust their accounting practices one bit. Wouldn't be surprised if we find more big companies forging their numbers like the Adani Group. Nah, it's only capitalistic in name, it's more of an oligarchy where the people at the top are in cahoots with the political system and make it very difficult for new entrants. India is damn hard. It's already priced in. Even if the economy grows, investor protections are a lot weaker, particularly for a small, foreign investor. The real risk is that your returns get taken by various taxes and fees or looted by connected insiders. The problem I have with India is the bureaucratic obstacles needed to open a business and engage in commerce. Ideally, you want to invest in a country where it's easy to formally start a new business. No, India has the most to lose due to new AI innovations. India's cheap labor force will be displaced by AI in the technology area, which was a driving force for companies looking to outsource labor. This was the selling point for robotic process automation implementations the last 5-6 years to most Fortune 1000 companies. Do you guys know Western companies that heavily invest in India or Vietnam? Might be a better play than to directly invest in an Indian company. I wonder this too. India's population is expected to peak around 2060, rather than China, who possibly peaked a decade ago. That population isn't the whole story, obviously, since the service output is still slated to grow and develop. As a side note, I'm interested in investing into African development and expansion, since I think it would have the upside that you'd see in China and India a few decades ago. No, I don't have anything to back that up, but no one ever seems to talk about Africa. I think it's an inevitability that they grow over the next 30 years and become a major regional power, if not an outright superpower. Western leaders are really invested in trying to get India to tilt west for their military needs and economic development, and I think that's going to happen sooner rather than later. Probably not. No. There is a major push to reshore or friendshore most economic functions, so investing outside of already major economies and their friends is probably going to be silly for the next few years. India won't see the growth that is already priced in. Following this, I was talking about this to my wife over the weekend, and we decided only if it was in the low hundreds of dollars due to the same risks you identified. No. Most massively growing developing economies usually see the growth in breadth, not in established names. More companies added and small caps, not increase in big names, so the indexes don't grow significantly during expansion. No. I am from India living in US and would not invest in Indian companies. Way too much shady stuff's going on. Do you live in India? If not, don't forget to factor in the exchange rates. If you are talking about capital equity markets, you are better off buying something like VWO. It's a bad idea to invest directly, as there are practically no enforceable laws protecting investors, even Indian citizens for that matter. If you want to invest directly into business or real estate, you'll need a local Indian person who you can trust your life with, which is a pipe dream. Humans are in general dishonest, and more so in India. Also, like others mentioned, currency devaluation is a huge headwind and can wipe out your gains. Inflation is absolute bonkers in India. Good luck. As a foreign investor, you can't easily invest in India. As far as the risks are concerned, they existed when I started investing around 12 years ago. Portfolio has done extremely well. Indian equities currently comprise about 3% of global market cap. Goldman Sachs estimates that will 8x to 22 of global market cap by 2050. Yes. We should have an allocation.